Apple has somehow done it again. Earlier this year, Apple captured 75% of the overall handset market operating profit and 40% of the revenue, despite only contributing 13% of the global handset shipments. Now, you may say, well, the reason they made so much money is because they charge so much. But of course, there are more expensive phones out there, so that's just kind of a trash idea. But here's what's even more interesting. They also retained 50% of the overall premium handset market share. They recently even passed all other manufacturers to become the #1 handset in China. What? Of all places, that's the one place that I think Android lovers were safe. Like, there's no way that iPhone's going to be #1 in China, where there's so many different options. But it happened. For the first time since 2015, Apple is #1 in China. And as a matter of fact, they've done so many things this past year that it's absolutely insane how well the iPhone sells. It's just kind of crazy. I mean, listen, even me, I got all this Apple stuff and whatever. I can see that there are much more interesting handsets out there than an iPhone. But that kind of doesn't matter. And really, to be honest, there's a lot of reasons why this is. And we'll talk about some of them right after this.
This is, you listening to Travis.
What up, players? Welcome back. And for all you new people, welcome. My name's Travis and I do tech videos every single week and have a blast doing them. And today we're going to talk about the iPhone and how it's dominated sales in 2021 and even, heck, part of 2020. So if you like that, hit the subscribe button if you're new. If you've been here before, hit the like button, and let's get into the video. So as I just said, pound for pound, dollar for dollar, every iPhone that's sold contributes so much to the profit of Apple. We knew this already. We know that an iPhone doesn't actually cost that much to make compared to what they're selling them for. And like any good business, of course, you sell something for more than it costs you to make. But what's really interesting is how, despite that, and despite most people, at least the people that are on YouTube watching these videos, knowing that they're overpriced pieces of junk, they still sell so well. And it's really not about the hardware itself. That's where people who love Android so much kind of get caught up. They think, oh, the thing has a big ugly notch and it's old stuff and the software looks the same. The phone looks the same for the last 3 generations. And that's kind of true. They have looked exactly the same pretty much since the iPhone 10. But did you know that most people don't care about that? Because what we're talking about today is the large portion of people in the world that buy handsets and not the tech nerds that watch YouTube videos. And this is something that's more interesting to pay attention to because it actually will start to push manufacturers who want that success in a particular direction. It did a couple years ago when Android manufacturers started putting notches on their phones like Apple did, thinking that would somehow help. A large portion of the premium market in Q2 of 2021 was driven by Apple, which reported sales growth of 74% year over year in the premium segment and a strong momentum of the iPhone 12 due to people wanting to upgrade to 5G. Now, I actually talked about this early in the year, saying that while 5G, and anyone who knows anything about it, is not going to make much of a difference to your day-to-day usage, it's one of those things that your average consumer kind of understands. More G's is more better, right? While Mr. Mobile, Michael Fisher, has done a great job covering how kind of 5G doesn't really make that much of a difference, the reality is if an average consumer walks into a phone store or a store that sells smartphones and they see something that says 5G and something that says 4G, they're going to take a look at that 5G. And I believe a lot of that has to do from the transition from 3G to 4G. If you had a phone back in the 3G days, let me tell you something. When you were trying to do something cool like watch video, it was kind of painful depending on where you stood. Of course, when 4G came out, it seemed to kind of alleviate the vast majority of those problems unless you live somewhere really far out. And I think most people are thinking that 4G to 5G is going to have that same change for them, even though we know it won't. Now, just because you and I know 5G doesn't make that much of a difference does not mean that the vast majority of people out there buying smartphones know that as well. They don't. They just think 5G means better. And, rightfully so. Like I said, their experience has told them otherwise. So when they go to buy a new smartphone, they buy a 5G phone. And because the iPhone came out with a 5G phone last year, that actually kind of pushed. Matter of fact, check these numbers out. Apple's already captured about 33% of the global 5G shipments already. And what's crazy about that is that there's only one manufacturer of iPhones. There are multiple manufacturers of Android phones. That's really kind of mind-numbing. But this is even more crazy. iPhone 12, in the 3 months that it actually existed in 2020, managed to gather 24% of 5G shipments. That makes no sense. They came in with about 3 months left in the year and still managed to get a quarter of the shipments of 5G phones. What is going on? Apple's branding dominance continues to this day. What's even crazier is that Apple has gone into China, a place that has so many different manufacturers for smartphones, and taken over there. Like, to me, that just shows how strong the branding is. And as I've talked about on this channel, that's kind of the key to Apple's victory across all of these different smartphone brands. And all this to say that even though Apple isn't the #1 manufacturer in the world, they are dominating in country by country. And the amount of smartphones in general that are sold, if you look at this chart, you can see the top smartphones are all iPhones. This is no trickery. This is actual facts. This is what's happening. So you might go, well, if Samsung's #1, how come none of their phones in the top 5? Well, that's because they have a tremendous amount of different phones, and selling any one particular phone adds to the overall kind of shipments that they're doing for that particular quarter or even for the year overall. But they don't have one particular phone that's just knocking it out of the park. And another thing that kind of adds to this is that there are people out there switching to iPhones. And I know, listen, some of you out there are saying that that's impossible and it'll never happen, but the numbers don't lie. It's happening. And if you want to see how something like that would happen, I actually did a video on this very recently where I gave an Android user an iPhone for a week and see if they would actually switch. Now, I'm going to give a spoiler away here. So if you haven't seen that video, go watch it. Links in the description below, and I'll put it in the end screen. But if you don't want a spoiler of what happened, go watch it now and then come back because I got to say some stuff about that. One of the top things that people said about that video was that the reason why he switched is because he had an old Android and went to a new iPhone. Well, that's just one of the silliest arguments you can possibly have, because those same people would say that no matter how new an iPhone is, they would never switch because it's an iPhone. It shouldn't matter if the new phone is new or not, whether or not you're going to switch from an Android to an iPhone. And here's the other thing. The vast majority of reasons that Nelson actually switched had nothing to do with a newer phone. Sure, one aspect was that it took better pictures, and of course a newer Android phone would take better pictures, but every single other reason was iOS. It wasn't about a new phone.
I think that the ecosystem is fantastic. The fact that, FaceTime is on all iPhones. I can FaceTime my nieces and nephews. I can FaceTime friends. Like, that was really cool.
And that's really the thing. As a person starts to use an iPhone and starts to see how it can work in their everyday life, especially if they have friends and family already on an iPhone, it's kind of hard to get out and to deny the power and the strength of what Apple is doing. Now, they're not perfect. Don't get me wrong. They're absolutely not perfect. But if you have a family or friend who has an iPhone and you start to use it, just like Nelson, you may switch as well. And I know it's not a perfect scientific test, but it is a test of someone just like all the other hundreds of thousands of people that have switched recently. You get to see in real time what other people are seeing. Of course, you're going to switch to a newer phone when you have an older one. That's how it works. So I'm literally showing you what the process looks like to someone who has an Android phone and ends up switching to an iPhone and what they experience day by day in this very channel. I did it for you. I did it for all of you. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and watch that video. And listen, come back. I got some other videos too. And I'll see you next time. Peace and love.